truth. 105 years, and now I am tired of life. I have enjoyed everything. I don't want to live anymore. Will looked at him, shocked. What do you mean? Henry sighed deeply. You still don't know the truth. Have you ever wondered why there are different time zones? Why prices in your ghetto keep changing every day? It's simple. The system is designed so the poor keep dying, and every death gives more life to the rich in Greenwich. The rich live for centuries, while here, people fight every single day just to live one more hour. It's all deliberate. They want you desperate. They want you begging, so that they can live forever. Will stared at him, realizing Henry was not selfish, he was kind. Then Henry asked, if you had as much time as me, what would you do? Will smiled faintly. First of all, I'd stop looking at the clock, because right now I only have 18 hours. I check it before I sleep, after I wake up, even when I eat. Always afraid that it might run out. If I had your time, I'd buy a house for my mom in Greenwich. We'd live happily, without fear. That night, both men went to sleep, but by morning, everything changed. Henry woke up quietly. He looked at Will, still asleep, and then he placed his hand on Will's wrist, transferring every second he had. When Will finally woke, he glanced at his clock and froze. 116 years. He thought it was a dream, but then he saw the message on the window. Don't waste my time. His heart sank. He ran towards the bridge, and there Henry sat, waiting for his last seconds to run out. Will shouted his name, but it was too late. Henry smiled faintly and fell, gone forever. Will's eyes filled with grief, but now he carried Henry's gift, a century of life. He rushed to his friend, shared 10 years as a gesture of friendship, but inside, he knew he couldn't stay. Too much time made him a target. Only Greenwich was safe. So Will went to the bus stop, waiting for his mother with flowers in his hand. It was her birthday. But at that very moment, tragedy struck. His mother had just paid her bills, and with only 90 minutes left, she boarded the bus. But then came the announcement. The fare had doubled overnight, from 1 hour to 2. She begged the driver, my son will pay at the next stop. But he refused. She begged the passengers. No one helped, and the bus left her behind. Desperate, she ran. Each step burning away the seconds of her life. Meanwhile, Will waited. The bus arrived. Passengers got off, but not his mother. Panic filled his chest. He ran, searching. Then he saw her, running, exhausted, arms outstretched. Only 10 seconds left. They both sprinted towards each other. 5, 4, 3. And just as she reached him, her clock hit 0. She collapsed in Will's arms. He screamed, broken, crushed. The next morning, Henry's body was found, and the timekeepers began their investigation. Officer Raymond studied the bridge. No evidence. But then, the CCTV footage. A man was there. Will. Suspicion grew, and Raymond decided he would hunt him down. Meanwhile, Will had only one thought. The rich in Greenwich had built this cruel system, and because of it, his mother was dead. Now, it was time for revenge. To enter Greenwich, Will paid 1 full year, and when he arrived, he couldn't believe his eyes. People walked with centuries on their clocks. Guards had hundreds of years. Here, death had no meaning. Will's anger burned. He checked into an expensive hotel, and at dinner, he caught the gaze of a beautiful woman, Sylvia. But Raymond was already closing in. The camera had seen enough, and Raymond knew Will was the suspect. He moved his team straight into Greenwich, and from here, the game truly began. After reaching Greenwich, Will decided to play smart. He entered a grand casino, where the rich gambled away centuries as if they were coins. Will sat down at a table, and across from him was the richest man in Greenwich, Philip Weiss. Beside Philip sat his daughter, Sylvia, the same girl who had already noticed Will earlier that evening. The game began. The stakes were higher than life. At first, the rich laughed at Will, a poor man from the ghetto, daring to gamble with them. But Will was no fool. He played boldly, every move more dangerous than the last. And finally, he pushed all of his time into the pot. Every second, everything. The table went silent. No one dared. But Will's eyes burned with focus, and then with one final turn of the cards, he won. 1,100 years, transferred into his clock. The crowd gasped, and Sylvia looked at him with awe. For the first time in her life, she saw someone who wasn't afraid of time. That night, she invited Will to her father's mansion for a party. The next evening, Will arrived in a brand new car, dressed like the rich. Music filled the hall, laughter echoed. And then Sylvia approached him. They danced together. Step by step, her heart began to slip away. She was falling for him. But just as she was about to confess her feelings, the doors burst open. Timekeeper Raymond and his men. The music stopped. The hall went cold. They surrounded Will. Stop right there. In a single motion, they stripped away his years, all of it. Every second Henry had given him, gone. Sylvia watched, shocked. Clock, almost empty. Just a few minutes left. But fate was still with him. In the chaos of the arrest, Will saw his chance, and he ran. Bullets chased him through the streets of Greenwich, every second, his time slipping away. Then suddenly, Sylvia appeared. At first, she was angry. She believed Will was a criminal, but when she looked into his eyes, she saw the truth. He wasn't fighting for greed, he was fighting for survival. And in that moment, Sylvia made a choice. She ran with him. From that night forward, the daughter of the richest man in Greenwich stood beside a man from the ghetto. Together, they became fugitives. Raymond hunted them without rest. Every time they stopped, the timekeeper was there, cold, relentless. But Will and Sylvia were no longer running just to survive. They had a plan. They would strike at the system itself, the system that stole time from the poor and fed eternity to the rich. And so, the game of survival became a war for freedom. Do you want me to keep building this into the rebellion arc, where Will and Sylvia start robbing the time banks and giving time to the poor? Still in this calm, heavy pause narration? Perfect. Let's keep the same calm, heavy pause storytelling tone as the story moves into the rebellion arc. Voiceover. The beginning of rebellion, Will and Sylvia were no longer just two fugitives. They had nothing to lose and time to give away. Their first strike was at Philip Wise's own time bank, a fortress of eternity where millions of years were locked away while people in the ghetto were dying every second. Will looked at Sylvia. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with fire. Together, they broke in. The alarms screamed, guards rushed in, but Will's grip was steady, Sylvia's courage unshaken. And in one single move, they released years, centuries, millennia into the streets. The poor woke up that morning with more time than they had ever dreamed of. Mothers held their children longer. Fathers stopped running to the factory. People finally breathed. For the first time in history, the ghetto was alive. But with every act of rebellion, Raymond's hunt grew fiercer. To him, Will was no longer a criminal. He was a revolution, and revolutions must be stopped. Do you want me to continue this into the final showdown